This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing put together today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in endorsed series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iracing.com.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone, wherever you are, and welcome to round number 4 of the Skip Barber World Cup. My name is Daniel Handover, and joining me in the commentary box once again is Ewan O'Leary. Ewan, good to be back. Thank you for jumping on with me as well. It's good to be able to commentate alongside you again. Round 4, so 3 rounds have gone. We're certainly motoring along through this championship nice and quickly. I think with the racing that we've had so far, it's been pretty, I think all in all, it's been very, very good.
It has been absolutely excellent so far. Really, really enjoyable. Loads of different formats as well, by the way, in this championship. And finally, we're visiting one that we've seen before with a sprint race and a main race here today at the Hungaroring. I was saying to you just before we came to air here that the Hungaroring I find normally quite boring, but I've yet to find a circuit where these cars are boring at. So I'm looking forward to this. Wow, that was a crash. I'm looking forward to this nevertheless. It should be good once again with these Skip Barbers once again providing fantastic racing, as I'm sure they will do.
Well, actually, certainly so. It's, as you mentioned, these cars don't really provide all that much in terms of boring. Really, as you say, similarly with me, I've never found a track that these haven't worked on. There's been some interesting pairings, but it's never to any point of them when they actually, don't work in that sort of sense. So, it's really, really good to be able to see. It's really good to be able to see them. It's really good to be able to just actually, watch a car that, while it is popular, it's popular, but almost in a way that, I don't know, it's hard to describe, isn't it? Because it is a popular car, but it's a popular car almost to a niche audience in a similar fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely loved by that of course niche audience that you mentioned there, and there's plenty of fans of this car. Of course, it has become a little bit less fashionable in recent years. I think it's fair to say. It's been out for a very long time in iRacing now, this Skip Barber, and there's a lot else going on elsewhere on the service these days. But it doesn't mean that this car has got any less exciting. Indeed, it still is absolutely fantastic. I do know that some of the time models as well haven't quite worked with this car, but it is in a good place at the moment. We've seen some good races so far this season, and let's hope that continues.
Absolutely. In terms of championship standings, we have Philip Hammer currently still leading the way with 301 points for the team Germany. Driver Nick Vaughn Roberts in second place. This is overall, bear in mind. Nick Vaughn Roberts in second place. Then as we move a little bit further down, you got Manuel Lucetta, Loris Armadio, Adam Miles rounds out the top 5. Kevin Budgeon in 6th, Sebastian Schulz in 7th, Roger Hooker 8th, Ivan Fabro in P9, and then Christopher Miles top in that top 10. When it comes to Pro-Am, so that's currently being led by Ivan Fabro, who is 9th, and Christopher Miles just behind. There's only 4 points separating the two in terms of the Pro-Am battle. So do keep an eye out for those two there. And then down, Nicola Tessato, currently sitting in P15th overall. He is leading the AM Championship. You got Charles Webber just, again, 7 points behind, even if I can count. 7 points behind. So the Forgia TV racing team currently leading the way. Actually, no, I'm getting myself very, very confused. Apologies. So that's the Forgia TV team Green leading the way. And then Charles Webber down in P16 as well. So he is only 6 points behind. So it's really, really close all round still with a few races left. Like I said, this is certainly going to be an interesting one, Ewan, as you mentioned, because Format 4, we saw this in round 1. You've got a sprint race followed by a main race with, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a top 15 reverse from the sprint.
Yes, you are correct in that one indeed. So we're going to get to the end of race 1, reverse the top 15 and go again. Currently, there are only 15 drivers actually connected in the current practice session that's been going on for the last 50 minutes or so. Yeah, that's one to look out for. Basically, the entire field is going to be reversed for the main race. So yeah, we look forward to it. And it did produce some frills and spills at Donington Park. If you remember back to the sprint race, it was a complete mob coming towards the final chicane on the very last lap. On the second race, there was a bit of a runaway winner because reverse grids do sometimes allow for that, even in a car like this. So let's see how it pans out here today. But the entire field basically being reversed here for the second race is going to make things interesting. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, it certainly will indeed. Practice has just finished, and we're going to be moving forward very swiftly over to the alone qualifying format that we have seen. And we're going to ride on board with a couple of drivers in a few moments. So a lot of drivers are already getting out on circuit, trying to get some laps under their belt. They do have the opportunity here to they have 3 laps of which they're able to set a time. After those 3 laps, that is it. You can do it as long as you do it within the time allowed. You can run up to those 3 laps. But if you don't get all those 3 laps in and the timer runs out, that is unfortunately that's your qualifying over. I tell you what, when you bring a car like this to somewhere at a Formula One circuit, it's quite wide, and especially the more modern Formula One circuits wouldn't necessarily be considered, I suppose, wide in some instances. Miami, for example. But when you bring a car like this to somewhere like Hungaroring, it looks tiny, doesn't it? It's almost like a little toy car running around.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It's very, very small indeed. It looks like it anyway. A very long lap around here as well for these particular cars. So over 2.5 minutes a lap at Road America a couple of weeks ago. The F1 cars obviously are down below the 120s at the moment. But these Skip Barbers, a good lap time is just under the 2-minute mark around here. So yeah, it's really not a very powerful car, not a very big car as well, but both of those things play into the hands in terms of the racing. It doesn't say makes life easier, but it does make racing a lot easier than the F1 cars experience around here when they come here on their travels. So yeah, we're looking forward to it, but yeah, it's a strange sight, I think it's fair to say. They're not quite going to look, I think even Winton, next time out, they're going to look quite small as well. It's just one of the characteristics of this Skip Barber, really. Very, very tiny car.
As you say, yeah, very, 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 very small car indeed. But, again, a car that I absolutely... these cars, they are a niche market in some ways, but regardless whether you drive them or not, you cannot argue that there is some amazing racing that happens within this series, just the entire car itself, whatever series there's in, there's always some good racing. Anders Nielsen there, you can see trying to get, it seems we've already gone through 2.5 minutes of qualifying, and obviously no times have been set. No times are even close to being set yet. We've probably got to wait another couple of minutes for everyone to actually set a time. Anders Nielsen, you can see going really, really wide, then trying to cut back down on the inside to try and get that additional bit of speed going down into turn 1. Goes through turn 1 again. Momentum conservation is absolutely key here. If you don't get it right, riding now on board, slightly different camera angles this time around. Again, give you a slightly more sort of driver's perspective on what's actually going on. A lot of understeer build up there for Anders Nielsen. Just touch the rev gauge in there as well. Just see around about 6.2, 6.3 would be the red line for these cars, which they will be changing. And in terms of qualifying as well, every lap will get faster. So the last laps are the ones to watch out for. You want to get a banker in early, and then after you got your banker in, that's where you can then start pushing if you want to. Some people don't though. Some people are just quite happy to just throw lap times out and go hell for leather straight out of the gates. Other people don't, obviously. It's interesting in terms of tactics. So we'll, whatever people's personal preference is. The first lap times are going to be coming in for another 30 seconds or so. And we're going to be able to see actually who's at the top. So you were mentioning around about the 2-minute mark is going to be a time for people that are going to be wanting to hit.
Well, that's the evidence I managed to gather from practice, at least, from some of the top times coming in. Adam Miles was the driver with the best time, just ahead of Nick Vaughan Roberts in the practice session. So that's around about where we're expected to be. Joshua Dancy is going to be the first car over the line, and then it's going to be a bit of a traffic jam in terms of times coming up on the left-hand side in the next few laps. Doesn't look like Dancy was able to get that lap time in. Must have had an off-track or something around there. So, yeah, waiting for anybody to just set a lap time here, really. Everybody seems to be struggling. The off-track, of course, if you pick one up, you won't, or your lap time won't count. It looks like pretty much everybody's managed that so far. No times are appearing at the moment.
But you know what? I'm quite surprised as well that, again, as you say, there's been no there has been no times actually that have been set, which I find.
Surely that can't be true.
No, that can't be right. Surely.
There've been 13 drivers, 14 now with Philip Hammer, and apparently nobody, has managed to get this lap in without going off, which can't be true.
No, I mean, I don't know. In all honesty, I don't understand why this is. I don't know why this would be the case, and surely there is something that there must be something going on with our timing software, perhaps, or something, because that is a very, very, if so, I mean I don't think I've ever seen that before at all. I've been sim racing for a long time. And I don't think I've ever seen everyone complete one lap and then have not actually for them all to be the entire grid to be out in the timing tower. There must be some. We're going to try and reload our timing tower software just to see if that kicks things into life. But yeah, I think again, no time. By the looks of it, no times have been set.
That is very bizarre indeed. Not entirely sure why on earth that would have happened. But let's see if there are any coming over the line here. I really don't know at the moment why none have come in. Now we do have one from Josh Dancy. We're getting lap times on the board now, so for whatever reason the second lap times are coming through. And so we can finally get a bit of a view as to where people are. Kevin Budgeon currently goes to the top.
Indeed, absolutely. So they will currently be split as well. They're going to move over to the overall standings in a second. Anders Nielsen goes in. Nick Vaughan Roberts there with a 2:01.8. There's a 2:01.1 for Adam Miles, although that actually looked, interestingly enough, slower than Nick Vaughan Roberts' last lap. So I don't really know what's going on there, considering that in terms of pace, Nick Vaughan Roberts should be pole position. I'm very confused at the moment. I don't know about you, and I am very confused.
Yeah, it just looked like 400 of a second quicker there for Roberts on the last laps. I just wonder if, I don't know either. At the moment, we just have to trust what it's telling us at the moment in terms of where we are, because we have no idea. I do wonder as well from the practice session coming into the qualifying session here whether the track conditions have become less favourable, because we did see below 2 minute lap times for Adam Miles in the practice session a few moments ago. Has the sim gotten rid of some of the rubber maybe that was being built up throughout the practice session? Obviously, you spoke about it earlier. When you wind this car up and you do lap after lap after lap, you do tend to get quicker as the fuel comes down. So if Adam Miles did that during practice, then obviously he would have been able to go a little bit quicker than he has done over the 2 laps he's done here. So not entirely sure really, but the track does seem to have been a little bit slower than it was in practice, although Adam Miles was still quick enough for pole position.
Absolutely, and in terms of qualifying here, so we are going to run through it. In terms of qualifying wise, we are going to go as from an overall perspective. And here we are. So starting currently in pole position will be Adam Miles with 2:01.303, starting just behind with Nick Vaughan Roberts. It's saying there a tenth and a half off. So there we go. That seems to be the actual standings. Philip Hammer in third with Kevin Budgeon P4. Lawson Seifer fifth, Christopher Miles in sixth, Joshua Dancy will be starting seventh, Nicola Tassato in eighth, Ephraim Pizzati in ninth, Anders Nielsen rounds out your top 10, Filippo Bernardi 11th, Ivan Fabro will be taking P12 on the grid for the first race. Manuel Ugetta 13th, Giuseppe Tellini 14th, Loris Armadio 15th, and then Chaz Webber in P16. We're being told, actually, apologies, so that is what's happened. There have been some miscommunication from our side, so we do apologise for that, but it's an average of the 2 laps. So there's an average of the 2 laps, and that obviously decides the grid position. So that is what we were seeing. That's why we weren't seeing any times come up. That provided certainly a little bit more tension there, I think. I don't know about you there, but for all that time, we thought something was wrong with the timing tower. It wasn't. It was simply actually just a part of the format for today.
Yeah, something wrong with us instead. So yeah, not entirely sure. Yeah, we both missed that clearly. So apologies for that. But yeah, it's another interesting shake-up. And of course, points awarded in qualifying, by the way, in this championship for the top 15. 15 points for pole position, 1 for 15th. You do the maths as to what that is for each position. So yeah, points on the board for some of these guys, but all of the main contenders up towards the front as the lights get ready to come on.
Indeed, they do. There's the timing tower on the left. 5 lights go out, and we are away. It seems like an age to get these cars started, but they do start winding up, and off we go down into turn 1. It seems to be neck and neck. There's a bit of a run down into turn 1 in these cars, so I don't think Clipstream will play much into effect, although Nick Vaughn Roberts may be trying to come around the outside, possibly, of Adam Miles. He's going to give it a good old go as he goes in. Very wide circuit, remember. Can't quite get by, though, unfortunately, but he's going to give it another go through turn 2. Have a look at that. There's a couple of other people, Joshua Dancy and Efrem Pizzati, that can have a bit of a battle. Nicola Tassato in there. Dancy's actually going to go up the inside of Tassato. Tried to go around the outside. No, he did go up the inside. So Joshua Dancy maintains that position. Unfortunately, having dropped 3 positions overall. You can see, again, the overall... you can see the actual class times over on the left-hand side. Again, you can see the positionings there. But at the moment, as it stands, everyone running through. Has been a couple of changes, but not as many as I would have initially thought. Everyone goes relatively cleanly. Again, we've seen this time and time again. You know, everyone settles down actually quite surprisingly early, and they normally trundle along. They follow each other, get their bearings from one another, and then they start pushing after that. So it's interesting to see. You know, once again, same thing with this race. There's been no change at the moment. Well, there has been a couple of position changes. There's nothing that you would turn around and say that there's, you know, people aren't really being hyper aggressive at the moment. Everyone's just running the road race, getting a feel for the car, letting the tyres warm up, and then obviously they'll start pushing in a little bit. But overall, pretty clean start.
It has been a very clean start for everybody here. A long run down in towards turn 1, of course, which does make life pretty tricky. But a very twisty mid part of the lap, of course, and that has allowed a group to sort of pull themselves away almost here. Adam Miles currently leading, and we're sort of seeing 5 or 6 cars run away from the rest at the moment, with Vaughn Roberts, Hammer, Budgeon, Christopher Miles, and Torsten Seifert as well, all involved. And Miles trying to break a little bit of the slipstream here coming down towards turn 1, but he's going to get absolutely steamrolled into turn 1 by the looks of things, despite his best efforts to defend.
He's certainly trying it, isn't he? As we see Nick Vaughn Roberts going to go round the outside. Adam Miles, though, fights it again. The circuit simply being so wide allows all the drivers to actually move forward and really gain, I suppose what you can say, is try and gain the advantage back. You can see Adam Miles going through there. Again, the circuit's so wide, you can allow 2 cars to go side by side. We might see this for quite a while here as they go through down into turn 3, still side by side. Turns 4 and 5 next. Turn 4 is a bit of a tricky, sharp left. Roberts taking a very, very defensive line there, probably more so than maybe he have needed, but he brings it back round over to the right to cut turn 4 off. Still side by side as they go through down into turn 5. Fantastic long shots and long camera angles here, which I think is absolutely brilliant. You can really see the action without too much chopping and changing. Go through into 6 and 7. Are they still going to be side by side? Why? Oh, just for a brief moment. Adam Miles shuts the door. I think that was always going to happen regardless. It was going to happen one way or another. So Adam Miles maintains the lead once again. And I'll tell you what, over the next 12 laps, this is what we're going to see. We're going to see this consistently, absolutely consistently. 12 laps are within this race. So we have 12 laps, and then we're going to see, let's say, probably for the next 10 laps, I would imagine, we are going to see this very, very sort of cat and mouse battling here.
Yeah, it's great battling. It has to be said. Side by side through the chicane at the top of the hill, there is not something you often see, and there's good reason for it. It's not very wide there at all, but Miles and Vaughn Roberts were able to make that one work without too many major problems. Thankfully, everybody stays in the right place. We do have a leading group of 6 continuing to pull themselves away. Joshua Dancy is at the front of the second group on the road. You can see them in the background. They're working hard to try and get on terms with these guys, but if they battle like this, then this race is all going to come back together, and there's going to be 16, the entire field, involved with this battle for the race win if they're not careful.
I'd tell you what, it's certainly a possibility, isn't it? Christopher Miles is sitting there in P5. He's just letting the battling unfold. Once again, you see there a little bit where Adam Miles was defending just a little bit from Nick Vaughn Roberts. There's a couple of moves have been made. Chaz Weber and Anders Nielsen are having a good old bit of a scrap. A little bit further down the field, Loris Armadio just got past Nicola Tassato as well. At the moment, nothing. I thought there was going to be a pass there, but Chaz Weber did get past for the briefest of moments, only a couple of corners, and then Anders Nielsen actually then retook the position. As we go then, once again, yeah, you can see that the gap between Cypher and Miles that has opened up. Between Cypher and Giuseppe Tellini, that has opened up. It doesn't look like it's closing, in all honesty. It's going the other way, and it's continuing to open. So I would, as I say that, it's come down 3/10, so ignore what I say. You don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that gap, that's a surprisingly big gap in these cars. You know, while it does provide, there's a bit of breathing room for Cypher, one mistake could really reset that, obviously naturally set that in the complete opposite way. And at the moment, there's no draft, there's going to be no tow pulling Tellini along. Whereas Cypher and the remainder of the cars up ahead, they're all going to get pulled along with their slipstreams. But Giuseppe Tellini, as long as he sits there though, if he just sits there for a moment and continues to just plug some laps, you may get it so when they do start battling inevitably, which will happen towards the end of the race, then that gap will start to come down. A little bit further down the field once again, Pizzati, Tassato, Nielsen, Chaz, Weber and Bernardi as well, all having a big old scrap. You've actually got Ivan Fabro, that is Ivan Fabro and Pizzati that are just up ahead. They're in the AM category, the Pro-Am category battle. And then Tassato is leading the way in the AM category. But, like I said, you've got Anders Nielsen, Chaz Weber and Bernardi right on his heels. So, again, it's really good to see all these cars nice and close to one another.
Yeah, it is. This is the obviously back group, if you like, on the road at the moment. But I think it's very important for the second group there, with Tellini now leading them. I think that is important for them, and they do stand more of a chance getting up towards the front again and connected with those leading 6 now. With all due respect to Joshua Dancy, he is a Pro-Am driver. If you get those 3 pro drivers working together well at the front of that second group, then they could very much connect with the top 6, and it already looks like they might well have done. Looking at the gaps at the moment, a little bit difficult to tell, but it's mainly down to Miles and Vaughn Roberts, because they're battling so hard. Look at them, side by side once again, into the chicane. We've seen this before, we're doing it again. Here we go, over the curves, sliding, bouncing your way through, and Adam Miles is just about going to hold on again.
I think at the moment, so Nick Roberts, he's tried that a couple of times now. It doesn't seem to work. It was closer that time, admittedly. It was definitely closer that time. But again, just doesn't seem to be working at this moment, in all honesty. So Nick Roberts may have to think of another tactic to go down. Maybe he's just trying to always make this position, keep having this, keep going with this position through and trying to make it work. And then maybe he'll dummy something a bit later on. Kevin Budget, we've just been told in the chat as well, that Kevin Budgeon apparently has a roast dinner sat next to him ready for this race. So, I mean, if that doesn't distract you, I don't know what will, because that would certainly distract me. Dawson Cypher has just overtaken Giuseppe Tellini. We're going to see if we can get a replay of that. Budgeon again doing very, very well in P4. In fact, let's see this overtake now. This is Giuseppe Tellini. So, it was Giuseppe Tellini trying to overtake Cypher, but Cypher then held it back into the last corner and manages to keep that position. So a bit of back and forth there, what we like to see. But once again, as Giuseppe Tellini comes down into turn 1, he gets the move back on Thorsten Cypher. There we are. So now he will try and pull that gap as much as he can. And then, to be fair, Manuel Lucetta and Cypher are now going to be possibly battling. There's Cypher on the inside. But I'll tell you what, though. Lucetta sending around the outside through 2. That is going to give him the run into turn 3. That will give him trap favorable position. And there we go. So Cypher's lost 2 positions. He might even lose 3 because Loris Armadio is just there.
It could lose even more as the battle for the lead also goes side by side through turn 4, the fastest corner on the circuit. But once again, they cannot leave each other alone at these two. Adam Miles is on the inside line into the first part of the chicane. Again, he held on from this position 1 lap ago, although he's not got his nose in front on the way in on this occasion. Although dives it deep under brakes, side by side, very near contact again. And Vaughn Roberts is going to have to stay behind here once again. Miles is doing a very good job of defending here, but it's making everybody very nervous. It's making everything very, very close. We've got 9 or 10 cars. We've got 10 cars indeed for the lead of this race at the moment. We're nearly at half distance already.
As you say, half distance, and we're really motoring along. And like I said, with these, they are coming down quite quickly actually. Again, for a track that is so long, considering the lap times are around 2 minutes apiece, they are really trundling now. Manuel Lucetta, I think, has had a moment. So has Loris Armadio, unless there's been an absolute... No, it's Loris Armadio has had an incident. I feel, yes, we're going to see if we can get a replay of that in a moment. But yeah, Christopher Miles really impressive at the moment. So with Dawson Sofair, 5th and 7th overall. Joshua Dance even getting involved in there as well in P8. And again, these times, they're not that dissimilar to one another. As an example, actually, Giuseppe Tellini was one of the fastest cars on that track. So was Manuel Lucetta. They're 2 of the fastest guys currently on the circuit, and they're down in 9th. And actually, I think Giuseppe Tellini might try. There we go. You just see him breeze past there. I don't know if Christopher Miles had a slightly slower exit out of the last corner. It didn't seem like it, but Giuseppe Tellini just sort of drove past him like he was standing still there.
Yeah, that was a bit bizarre, really. I can't quite hear at the moment to see if Christopher Miles lifted off maybe into turn 1. That might tell us a different story, but yeah, Tellini went shooting through there on the inside, landed up to 5th position. Of course, in this championship, by the way, everybody scores points as an overall kind of thing, if you like. But you get we sort them into different classes as well. If you're a Pro-Am or Am driver, you still score points. You still drink from the same fountain, if you like. There's the Pro cars, but you get sorted into a different category. So these positions, all of these positions matter in terms of points, whether you're battling with somebody from your class or not.
Yes, absolutely, as you say, and it provides some good. It provides some good racing because you're having to fight with people that aren't necessarily in your class. There's some tactics involved in terms of, do you try and overtake people and to try and gain more points? Do you then not take those points and try and then put, there's lots of different ways you can approach this racing again, which is one of the reasons why we all love it. Let's have a quick look at Loris Armadio's incident. So here we go, coming down into what looks like turn 12. I think this is all. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, there we go. That was an indicator as any what happened there. Now, Loris. Oh, hey, Loris. Oh, that's a bit naughty there from Armadio. A lot of cars coming through, and unfortunately, while he was initially in the best position, he had to sit there. He then started moving forward, and that didn't quite work. And I believe I think that was Armadio's race. Unfortunately, over in terms of any battles.
Oh yeah, he's back out again now. I think, looking at that, maybe he used a fast repair. I think you do get one, possibly. But he's back out there again, just a long way down in 16th position. The only driver at the moment who's not going to be involved in the reverse grid, which takes into account the top 15 from this first race here today. All of these guys are going to be involved by the looks of things. Just in what order is the question. We're starting to see a bit of a group getting pulled away once again after that incident with Armadio, which is really... kind of split this group up once again. It hasn't diluted any of the battling. It's still side by side between Miles and Vaughn Roberts, who have been going at it like this for the entirety of the first half of the race, and they're starting the second half in exactly the same way, side by side up the hill through 4. Finally, it looks like Miles might have been displaced here.
Well, at the moment, that seems to be the case, but we've got a little bit of battle further down because Kevin Budgeon decided that he wants to have a bit of a look up the possibly the inside of Phil. I thought he was going to have a move then, but that wasn't the case. But yeah, Nick Roberts has certainly got that move done and dusted. What has probably taken him what has felt like an absolute eternity for him has now been done. Let's see if we can have that replay. So it all did stem from turn 1. So this was the initial overtake. It did take about 30 seconds to sustain that overtake, but the overtake was sustained nevertheless. Again, just has the edge going forward into turn 1, even though Miles got a good run on the exit. Nick Roberts was just enough ahead. Look at that. He's still ahead going into turn 2. I think that was the key thing before. Because he wasn't, Adam Miles could still send it around the outside and try and keep up momentum. But Nick Roberts now had the advantage that particular lap. He had the dominant track position, and he was able to stay ahead longer going through. Because almost, I think turn 4 was the actual decider. Does he push him out a little bit? We've got a bit of time, so we'll see if he does push him. Does he just run him a little bit further out? Yeah, so you can see there, Adam Miles went a little bit wide, and that would have also cost him some time. So a long overtake in the making, but ultimately it was done and dusted. So fair play again, really really clean racing from both.
Certainly was. It's exactly what we like to see. As Manuel Lucetta is looking to make a move on Torsten Seifer into turn 1. And this is going to be fairly easy for the pro driver to get through on a Pro-Am. A little bit wide onto the AstroTurf, but makes it work. We go on to lap 8 here in this race. Still side by side between Vaughn Roberts and Adam Miles. We haven't really seen this throughout this season so far. We've seen obviously big trains of cars with chopping and changing every single lap, but never have I seen a top 2 change so much, but also the top 2 remain 1 and 2, just in a different order each time. It is remarkable that Miles and Vaughn Roberts haven't been challenging themselves. They've been challenging each other so much, but nobody challenged them, somewhat weirdly almost.
Yeah, I almost wonder if you know, you got Philip Hammer. I mean, the tyre, in terms of tyres, you won't be wanting to conserve tyres in all honesty, because these cars will be, you'll be able to push pretty much the entire race without any noticeable drop-off in terms of tyres. But maybe Philip Hammer is just holding back a little bit. He doesn't want to maybe make the move. He wants to maybe sit back and let let both Adam Miles and Nick Vaughn Roberts, it almost, I wouldn't say they're not tired of each other obviously, but just basically just pressure them. Pressure them without pressuring them. Let them pressure themselves. Let them continue to battle. And then when a mistake is made, if a mistake is made by the both of them, that's when Philip Hammer and Kevin Budgeon got pals. Although Kevin Budgeon did have a bit of a look a couple of laps ago, just to test the water a little bit, but Philip Hammer vetoed that straight away. So maybe Kevin Budgeon is doing the same thing. One mistake here, and as we all know, one mistake here, as we can see, I mean, that's 4 or 5 positions, potentially even more. So you've got to be really, really decisive, but you've also got to be very, very tactful with the overtakes as well. Because if the overtake doesn't work, costs too much time, and it all goes a bit wrong. Philip Hammer had decided, though, that he wants to have a move up the inside of Adam Miles. You can see Adam Miles trying to follow the line of Nick Vaughn Roberts to hold it around the outside, but he might get done again. Similar to what happened with Vaughn Roberts, and I think, it might be a little bit tricky, though, as we go through. Adam Miles is going to have the advantage going down into turn 2 and 3. Adam Miles is going to be on the inside. He's going to be able to carry a bit more corner speed through, but Nick Vaughn Roberts is almost holding Adam Miles up for a bit there. He cuts off the inside, though, so Philip Hammer has nowhere to go. But is this going to allow Kevin Budgeon to come up the inside, possibly into turn 4? I don't think it is. He hasn't got the run out of 3. So very, very, again, this is what we're talking about, tactful. You can't, almost in any other race series, any other car, there would be sends absolutely flying. Every single corner, every single lap. But with these cars, you just cannot afford it.
Yeah, you can't. You've got to pick and choose your moments and when you're going to go through here. You can't go all guns blazing the entire race. But I said it about this time last lap. Why has nobody challenged the top 2? Well, Philip Hammer has finally taken matters into his own hands and started to at least attempt to go through on Adam Miles there. It didn't end up working for him, and he actually might have brought some pressure onto himself here as well, by the looks of things. But it would be strange to challenge him at this stage. That would probably let the leading 2 get away and have the race victory for themselves. So not expecting to see that as we go a little bit further down in the pack. We'll see who really comes out on top in this one. It's going to be a fight right down to the end. What we do see at the Hungaroring, though, is a lot of battling towards the start of the lap through into turn number 1. It spills out obviously into the chicane at 6 and 7 if it goes on for very long. At this end of the lap, we really don't see very many moves made. Now, how is that going to change on the final lap? Nobody's really tested the waters with a move in the final sector before, but obviously this group is going to be together out front. There's going to be a race win on the line, and they're going to have to make some dives towards the final few corners. So let's see how that's going to go. It's going to be a very, very... there's going to be a lot of unknowns heading into this final sector of this race, where it's all going to be decided.
It is, absolutely. At the moment, though, the deciding factor is going to be up at the front of the field once again, as Adam Miles retakes the position on Nick Vaughn Roberts. wasn't that much defending there from Vaughn Roberts. And in all honesty, I can understand why, because he wants to try and make the move back going into turn 2. He carries a lot of speed through turn 2. That's going to give him the priority into turn 3. It does. So Adam Miles tried to get by, thought he did it, but unfortunately, Vaughn Roberts was able to carry the pace through turn 2 and obviously keep that position. But Adam Miles now goes up the inside of turn 4, and this may be possibly, have a look at Philip Hammer. He wants to get involved as well, so don't count him out yet. Also, don't count out Kevin Budgin. I was looking the other way.
Wheel-to-wheel contact between Vaughn Roberts and Adam Miles. It's the worst kind of contact, very dangerous in these open-wheel cars. They could have easily seen themselves both out of the race there. It's allowed Philip Hammer to go through. It's allowed Kevin Budgin to go through. Miles and Vaughn Roberts are struggling even to hang on to 3rd and 4th there. They made contact around turn 5. It's had really bad consequences for the both of them, and they've got a lot of work to do to get back to where they were.
Well, they have, absolutely, haven't they? Because Philip Hammer has gone, well, certainly he's not going to complain, is he? The biggest gap would be between, I think now, Vaughn Roberts is probably in the worst position because he's got the biggest gap now. Almost, I say the biggest gap, actually, Kevin Budgin and Philip Hammer, that's probably a sizable gap. But yeah, Vaughn Roberts just seems to be pressured almost a little bit more by Giuseppe Tellini than he is actually catching up with Adam Miles. But, you know, down into turn 1, obviously there's quite a big slipstream that's going to happen here. I think almost Philip Hammer's got the gap. Let's have a look at the intervals they come across the line. If it's anything over 8/10, I think that may be it. And I think Philip Hammer will be able to continue forward with no real hassles. You can see the slipstream working, but it's not going to be working enough. In fact, Giuseppe Tellini might have a look on Nick Vaughn Roberts. No, not this time, but Vaughn Roberts gets pressured into braking a little bit too deep, so he went a little bit wide. That may allow Tellini. No, you can just see in the bottom of your screen that's not going to be the case. Hammer, that gap's 5.6 seconds. It could still happen, you know, with a couple of laps to go. This is where it all starts to kick off. It may very well happen, but I would almost just turn around and say that I think Philip Hammer's got enough of a gap, in all honesty, because you may see Adam Miles trying to get that position back, trying to get second place off of Kevin Budgin. And if that happens, I mean, Philip Hammer's is just going to sail off into the distance.
I wouldn't write anything off just at this stage yet. There's still 2 laps to go, but I do think Adam Miles is a bit too far back now to win this race. I think Kevin Budgin, because obviously he's got to get through on Kevin Budgin and then make the move on Philip Hammer and obviously close a margin that's going to open up in that battle with Budgin. So I think Miles is going to find this very difficult. Vaughn Harris certainly is going to find it very difficult to win this race. As Vaughn Roberts, I should say. What am I talking about? Vaughn Roberts is going to have obviously a bit of trouble winning this race as well, as it was looking like he might have been able to do a couple of laps ago. So this has all changed. 1 lap to go at the line, and Philip Hammer is all of a sudden in control. But this is why he is the leader of this championship. Scored the most points out of anybody for rounds 1 and 2. Scored the 3rd most points by anybody in round 3, but gained points on 2nd, 3rd and 4th in the standings at the race 1 or 2 weeks ago. So proving to us once again why he is leading the Skip Barber World Cup.
Very, very true indeed. Ivan Fabro and Efrem Pizzati battling for 10th and 11th overall, battling for 4th and 5th in class. The battle is there or thereabouts. Again, it might very well change. It depends on what happens going into turn 1. The gap seems pretty even Stevens, although Nicola Tassato, he's not in different class, bear in mind, but all positions, they're all fair game. That gap, I'll tell you what, that's really, really close between Philip Hammer, Kevin Budgin at 4. It's really, really close now. It's going to be a move. No, it's not a move. What we are going to do is now go to the top step. Here we are. This is it. So, the last lap. Kevin Budgin round the outside into turn 2. He's got the speed, I reckon. If he can hold it here, he's going to have the inside for turn 3. There is going to be side by side. Do you know what? He's gone and done it. He has gone and done it. Look at that. Fair play to Kevin Budgin. Didn't need a second invitation for that. And he is now leading the way, but Philip Hammer decides he wants that position back. What's Adam Miles going to do? Because he's going to get caught up. Is he going to follow through on Kevin Budgin? He tries to, and in fact, he's going to. Philip Hammer gets sort of pushed out wide, had nowhere to go. There's been a contact between the two. Massive contact between the two. Philip Hammer in the wall. He continues to go, but there's a number 85 wing. And whose is that 85 wing? Is that Nick Vaughn Roberts? No, Nick Vaughn Roberts, there's been kind of contact. Oh my, everyone's off. Absolutely everyone.
Oh, everyone's off. Hammer is into the gravel and stuck there. Might not get to the end here. Goodness, this could be big drama for this championship. Of course, as well, we've got Adam Miles with no rear wing out there at the moment. He goes back to pit lane. Hammer is not going to finish this race. He is going to start the second race from dead last as well, I'm afraid. Kevin Budgeon with a very clean move is going to clean up the race win here, surely. But everybody else has gone and got involved in that incident, I'm afraid. Hammer, the most of them, of course. Adam Miles is going to lose out on a load of points, as is Vaughn Roberts, who drops down the order. But Kevin Budgeon, the clean move on the last lap, has got him a nice race win here.
It has indeed. Fair play indeed. Kevin Budgeon taking the race win for round number 4 for the first sprint race here. What a performance. And again, to finish first you must finish. And there we go. May not necessarily have the out-and-outright pace in terms of a lap-on-lap, but my goodness, did he have that. He managed to keep it on the circuit and managed to keep going forward. And there we go. It does reward you indeed. I would like to, if we can, before we change over, I would like to have a quick look, if we can, at what actually happened. Because, I mean, there was a lot going on there. So as we come through, that's not the best camera angle to look at it, in all honesty. I think a chopper cam may be a little bit better. So we're going to quickly have a look at that once again. So if we go down round about here and go back to the chopper. So, I mean, does everyone gets involved? Everyone gets involved. Adam Miles has a bit of a tank slap. Oh, that's a hefty hit. That was Christopher Miles there. So Nick Vaughn Roberts just gets caught up. I mean, I know we only just caught the tail end of that, but such a shame there. And really, a disappointing way to end, certainly so. Not for the likes of, obviously, Kevin Budgeon. He'll be absolutely ecstatic with that. But, yeah, you would have wanted it to have come to the line, in terms of side-by-side racing, rather than an instant to decide the race almost again. Depending on who you are, you may say different things. But, yeah, there's always two sides of the coin when it comes to something like that.
It really is. It's a controversial incident, and there's going to be a lot of talk about that one. You would imagine further on into this, but yeah, it's hard to really tell. I do feel though as if Adam Miles did just drift ever so slightly to the left there into Philip Hammer, and maybe you could pin the blame on him, but really it's one of those last lap incidents. Everybody's so close together, and racing incidents are more likely than at any other point, really. So, not entirely sure if the pin is going to be blamed entirely on any one particular driver, but it was certainly a dramatic incident. Certainly not the way we wanted to end that particular race, but it's mixed up the order in terms of this reverse grid for race 2, because I would argue that the fastest cars are no longer actually going to be at the back anymore because of those last lap incidents.
Well, this again, we will have to very much wait and see when the reverse grid comes up. We'll see who is going to be actually on pole position and where some of the drivers are going to be. But we are going to take a very short break, very short ad break. We'll be back in a few moments for the feature race here. Make sure, don't go anywhere, stick around. We're going to be back in a couple of moments. Welcome back, everyone. Round number 4 here for race number 2, the feature race. We certainly had an interesting race 1 here, with the sprint all ending in absolute tears for a couple of drivers. Philip Hammer, Nick Vaughn Roberts, Christopher Miles, Adam Miles as well. A few names to mention there that certainly didn't have the race that they would have wanted, or the ending that they would have wanted to race number 1. But we do have another race to go, luckily. That race is going to be, an interesting one to say. Based on what we saw for the first race, and we are going to see more of the same, I would imagine. The reverse grid is always going to shake things up a little bit. In fact, there is the end of warm-up. But yeah, I think overall, this is going to be quite a similar race, just hopefully without the ending.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm drawing on the previous reverse grid race that we saw in this format that we had at Donington Park. We were able to see a pro car get away from the field quite easily and end up winning the race by quite a long way. Is Loris Amadio, excuse me, going to be able to do that here again today? Let's see.
Indeed, we will have to see how it goes. So Loris Armadio does take that all-important pole position for race 2. Filippo Bernardi, Anders Nielsen, Chaz Webber, Adam Miles, Nicola Tassato, Adam Miles in 5th. Keep an eye on that. Nicola Tassato 6th, Efrem Pizzati in 7th, with Ivan Frabo in P8. Nick Vaughan Roberts, another driver to keep an eye out for, starting in P9. Joshua Dancy 10th, Thorsten Sofer in 11th, Krista Miles in P12. Then we've got Manuel Lucetta, Giuseppe Tellini, Kevin Budgin, and Philip Hammer right at the very back of the field. Do not expect, though, for him to stay there. He's going to move through the field very, very quickly indeed. And in fact, let's go and see who's going to get the jump down into turn 1. Away we go. Lights are out. It's again pretty even start for everyone. A couple of drivers a little bit slow. You can see Nick Vaughan Roberts just pulling straight into the slipstream there of Ivan Fabro. But Loris Amadio's got a very, very good drive. He's got a very, very good run down into turn 1. He may have this in the bag, and he may secure that pole, first place going into turn 1. He does indeed. A couple of drivers go very, very wide. It's almost 3 wide between Vaughan Roberts and a couple of drivers. Couldn't quite make out who they were, but that may have been a couple of the Forgia TV cars. Down into turn 2 for the second time here, or the first time in race 2. Side by side, Bernardi, Miles, Nielsen and Webber going 2 by 2 down into 3. All then slot back into single file. Once again, everyone having... Oh! Big incident at the back. Who was involved in that? Joshua Dancy, Kevin Budgin, I think, that had a moment. Kevin Budgin, big incident there. He has lost a fair few positions. That may be his race already done and dusted with. Which would be a shame if so. But unfortunately, there may be nothing that he can actually do there.
I don't think it's going to be over, but he's certainly going to be a long way back at this early stage. We also saw, as you say, Josh Dancy and Torsten Seifer as well involved. I think Philip Hammer just about got away with it. He is in 13th. Oh, it's off the road. It's Bernardi, is it? I look to think Filippo Bernardi has got off the road there in the 285, and there's all sorts of chaos. So another spin for Tazzato. The AM Championship leader goes off the road on the start of the second race. Charles Webber has got a great chance here to gain a lot of points on the AM leader, currently up in 3rd. A great start from him. But yeah, we've seen a little bit more chaos on the opening few moments of this race than we did in race 1.
We certainly have indeed. Sorry, everyone. I was just getting progressively more excited. Just progressively getting louder and making slightly weirder noises as those incidents happen. Yeah, I mean, very, very... in all honesty, in this series, there certainly are incidents to start off with, but in we rarely have people that spin and go off their own accord on the opening laps. Everyone's got a really, really good understanding of these cars on cold tyres, but just became that little bit too much for a couple of drivers there, interestingly enough. So everyone trying to push their car to the absolute maximum, but no one was able to, a couple of drivers, unfortunately, just went a little bit over. Philip Hammer, he's already up into P9, so obviously, absolutely, taking into account the issues, taking into account the incident right at the very end of race 1. He's already been up 7 positions, considering he started right at the back, bear in mind. So he's still got a few cars to go. The gap is a pretty sizable gap, so around about 7 or 8 seconds up to P1. But more importantly, P1 is still visible.
Yeah, visible, but I think Amadio and Adam Miles are gone. I think they're not going to be touched again in this race. You're absolutely right, by the way, about Kevin Budgin. I thought he was going to be able to soldier on in this race, but he's actually out already. Well, he's in the pit lane anyway. Not sure if he's going to be able to re-emerge. Let's see what happened to him, though. Just Dancy was in the middle of 3 wide here, coming down towards the kink at turn 3. It's always tricky. He gets hit by some... Oh, my goodness gracious. I think that is Kevin Budgin, isn't it? Going for a wild ride up and over the top of somebody. Dancy with no rear wing. He's had to come in as well. But you can absolutely see why, looking at those shots there, why Kevin Budgin could no longer take part. He goes sailing into the air.
He does indeed. I really do want to catch up. I really want to catch that. Here we go. So this is going into... I mean, he had nowhere to go.
Oh.
Kevin Budgin just had nowhere to go there, in all honesty. So
yeah, couldn't
really,
avoid
really
that
unfortunate.
at all. could not avoid that at all. The car spun in front of him, basically, didn't it? So there's really not a lot you can do from that point. Dancy himself couldn't have done too much. I mean, though it was 3 wide. We speak about these cars being small. This track is quite wide for them, but 3 wide is difficult anyway, especially through 2 and 3. And so there's bound to be a little bit of wheel-to-wheel contact, which is, of course, really, really dangerous in these cars.
Yes, absolutely. This thing, wheel to wheel in any open wheel car is dangerous, let alone obviously the goings on in a car. In a car, it's just so light. This car is so light here. It can cost you a significant time. Even the smallest bit of contact can really, really upset the Apple car. Further up the field though, Armadio and Miles, they're battling still side by side. So this is going to slow them up. But importantly though, how much is it going to slow them up? Because they may be side by side for a fair few laps to go. So, again, that 3.5 second gap, do not count that out by any stretch of the imagination. We saw that as well. That's with the it's something that I think you mentioned actually, Ewan, and I'll mention the same. Is you simply don't know what happens here. Any gap here can just disappear in the blink of an eye. So that 3.5 seconds, I can't imagine. Oh, what was that? Was that Seifert?
Seifert into the wall. Yeah, just lost it on his own there through turn 4. The fastest corner on the circuit. The left-hander uphill there, and it looks like he's just gone straight into the wall. They're not entirely sure what that's all about. As the battles for third continue on, Ivan Fabro's trying to get away from all of these guys, but the pro cars are making their way through on the AMs and the other pro-AMs at quite an alarming rate, and so I don't think Fabro's going to be able to get away.
No, very, very true, actually. Look at Philip Hammer, though. He's going to try and get both positions. That's going to... Whoa, hey! That was a bit one way then the other. All 3 wide, chaps. We know that doesn't necessarily work, but he's going to try and give it a go anyway. No, it's going to go 2 wide. Philip Hammer gets 1 position, so that's on Chaz Webber. Is Philip Hammer going to make the move on Giuseppe Tellini? Lucchetta just gets past Nick Vaughn Roberts. You can see them side by side up ahead. Vaughn Roberts goes a bit wide as well. That would have cost him some time, and Tellini may try and go through the inside. There he is. He's actually on the outside, apologies. So that's what was going on there. When it comes to Vaughn Roberts and Lucchetta, they're going to be side by side coming down into turn 1. In fact, we can see on the rear from Ivan Fabro there. Can't quite see what's going on, but Nick Vaughn Roberts does go a little bit deeper into the brakes there than Lucchetta, and that is, I believe, done and dust move. Yes, it is. So, no, it's not actually. Camera angle was deceiving. No, it certainly is not. Why would I ever think a move is so easy like that? Of course not. So, Vaughn, you can see the timing tower going absolutely ballistic. Because Christopher Miles and Anders Nielsen, they're still having a bit of a battle as well. A bit further down, Joshua Dancy has jumped into the pits. He may have retired, perhaps. Kevin Budgeon is back out, though, in P14. Although he's a fair couple of minutes down, and certainly a few laps down at least. Vaughn Roberts in P5. Philip Hammer, though, in 7th, soon to be 6th, because Giuseppe Tellini has had a massive moment going through into turn 4.
Yeah, very wide there, and he's paid for it. Philip Hammer makes his way through. He's basically doing his own reverse grid challenge here as well. Of course, finished in 16th, top 15 reverse, but he's certainly deserved to be up inside the podium, probably from that most recent race. How much are those lost points going to cost him, though, from that previous race, from that most recent race? Only time will tell, of course, when we get the championship standings in at the end of the day, and we kind of prepare ourselves for round 5. We'll start to understand really where he is. But these pro cards have done a very good job, in all fairness, in making their way through. The likes of Lucchetta, we've seen Vaughn Roberts as well, despite a shaky start. Hammer as well as Tellini. These guys have fought their way through quite nicely. They'll be looking at a podium, I think. The top 2 surely are too far away for my money, but third place for all of these guys is certainly very possible.
Well, like I said, we're just coming back to about halfway through. There is a long way to go. I really want to have a look to see what Philip Hammer's going to do. I reckon again, you can do 2 things. I think he's in a mode. He's just in absolute charge mode. He wants to get past Nick Vaughn Roberts as soon as he possibly can. Vaughn Roberts goes to the ins. Well, I thought he was going to go to the slightly defensive line then, but he decides not to. And could this allow Philip Hammer to just slot up the inside? They're both going to get blocked off, but they're going to go side by side down. It's going to be close, but you know what? I think Philip Hammer may have got the run. They're both going to get a bit of a slipstream. So it's going to be 2 by 2. Lucchetta, Fabro, Vaughn Roberts, and then Hammer. Who's it going to be? So it's Vaughn Roberts going to the inside, but Hammer's got the drive around the outside. There's a bit of a bump, bit of a tap. Oh, that was close. that was really close there. I dread to think how close that was. I mean, it looked close, but we only saw a split second of it. Either way, though, everyone keeps driving along, and Philip Hammer, look at that. He's just absolute. He almost made that look easy.
He's got the hammer down, you could say. I'm sure we've made that pun before.
We've
I'll make that pun every week I'm here, I think. But it's worth it. Fourth place for him at the moment. Doing a good job. 16th place on the start here, already up 12. And as I mentioned, I think the podium is still very possible for him. And he's going to need those points, of course. And he will have lost out on quite a lot. Nick Vaughn Roberts, I know, he's second in the championship, by the way, Nick Vaughn Roberts. He also had problems on that final lap, so won't have gained as many points as maybe he would have liked, but Lucetta certainly didn't have any issues towards the end there and will have gained some. However, we're starting to see the guys at the front run away with it, really. Lucetta already coming into today's racing was 46 points back. Amadio as well, 59 points back. It's quite a long way, even with a drop week for your worst score. Philip Hammer still by far and away the championship leader, and I think he will be leaving today as well, but his lead will certainly be slashed by the end of these two races.
Yeah, no, as you say, no, the gap certainly would have come down, but it may still be Philip Hammer leading the way. Again, like I said, we really don't know in all honesty. Meanwhile, up front, that gap between Armadio and Miles, that's now become around about 6 seconds between Miles and what is now Hammer, but it might be Nick Vaughn Roberts going through down into turn one. Nick Vaughn Roberts has come out of nowhere and has just sent it round. Is there going to be a double cutback by Lucetta? Oh, if he gets this done, what a move this is going to be. They're going to go 3 wide down into turn 2, though. Regardless, Lucetta just timed that absolutely perfectly, though. He gives it a go. He's definitely going to get Nick Vaughn Roberts at this rate. I don't think he's going to get past Hammer, but he's certainly going to get past Nick Vaughn Roberts. I mean, although as I say that, he gets pushed. He might get a bit of a nudge, perhaps, from Vaughn Roberts. I don't think, though, he's going to get away with going through around the outside into turn 4. There's going to be no way he's going to be able to maintain this position. Or, as I say that, no, he does. If he makes this stick, this is going to be one of the best overtakes that I've seen in this series. He gets the cutback. So bear in mind, that cutback that started in turn 1 has now nearly, it's not quite been done yet, but it's almost going to be a move, a double cutback that's lasted. And in fact, there it is. Look at that. I mean, Manuel Lucetta, take my hat off to you, sir. That was 7 corners that took, all from a double cutback, but he made it stick. Fair play. That was one of the best overtakes that I've seen. Also fair play to Philip Hammer, because he managed to hold it for so long, but just couldn't quite keep it.
Fair play to everyone, really, but that cutback at turn 1 from Lucetta was absolutely unbelievable. It was ridiculous. There was so little space on the right-hand side there for him to make that work, but he just shoved his car in there and got it. Jesus, that was very wayward from Christopher Miles, I think it was, going down the inside of Tellini. I've no idea how he hung onto the car, really, but he's through, and it looks like it has ended in a bit of disaster for a couple of cars further down. I think Webber has lost a couple of places, or indeed in a battle a little bit down. But yeah, I mean, it was a remarkable cutback from Lucetta. There is the Christopher Miles sending it down the inside. That somehow made that work, and he actually got the place as well. I think there was issues further down for a couple of those AM cars. This is how it happened. Yeah, the car behind there going for, I'm not sure who the car behind is in that situation, but going for a move that wasn't really on. Always got a closing gap there at turn 12, unfortunately.
Giuseppe Tellini just makes that move back past Christopher Miles. So Christopher Miles, a very flamboyant overtake going down to turn 12, but unfortunately wasn't able to keep it for all that long. Gap up ahead. I've just had a... Oh, no. There we go. Nick Vaughn Roberts is in P3, sorry. But Manuel Lucetta has just overtaken him, I believe. What's going on up the front? Oh, dear. Here we go. 3 wide, perhaps, going down into turn 4. Nope, we're not going to go 3 wide down into turn 4. Probably the wisest thing. But Lucetta is in the exact same position he was a lap ago. So he's gone, well, why not? I'll help myself to that exact same overtake there. Manages to get it done a bit earlier, but are we going to see another cutback? Nick Vaughn Roberts with the cutback this time. Last of the late breakers down into 6 and 7. Is it going to be Vaughn Roberts? I think Lucetta holds it there. Lucetta is on a mission, is he not? He is not letting anyone past.
Yeah, he's doing a good job.
This is a hell of a defensive drive.
He is, yeah, sorry to cut across you. He's doing a very good defensive drive at the moment. We've seen this, it's very difficult to really defend in these cars because the slipstream is so powerful. And they're on the straights for such a long time that there's almost nothing you can do sometimes. But we have seen it. We saw it with Adam Miles as well to a degree in the first race when he was defending off for the lead. It is possible at a circuit like this one here at the Hungaroring. Obviously, it was near impossible at Road America last time out, and at Donington as well. It's very, very tricky. But yeah, Lucetta is somehow managing it here at the Hungaroring as well. Still got 5 more laps after this one to hold off. But he's doing a decent job for the moment.
Yeah, as we've seen, if you can just hold the positioning here, I mean, you may start to get, especially when you come to the latter half of the lap, like 10 and 12, or 10 to 12, I should say. That's when everyone starts to get a little bit more eager to try and make these moves, and they become a little bit, they happen a little bit more often. Although Lucetta did not defend all that much. He tried to get the cut by that time, did not work. It didn't work as well as it did a few laps ago. Yeah, no defence there as well. In all honesty, I don't blame him, because all this is going to do now, it's potentially, it would be delay the inevitable. And also as well, it's a position where you actually end up losing more time. If you think, Philip Hammer there, and Philip Hammer, if there's a position that Hammer is going to take, he is going to take it, let's be honest. So you don't really want to try, you don't want to lose any time there also. So a very wise decision, I think, personally, from Lucetta. Tellini did get past Fabro there, I did see. You just call that in shot going through 2 and 3. So he's moved up a little bit. He's now in 6th. So Kevin Budgeon is still going along. He's currently in 14th still. Bernardi has retired. So that's a couple of freebies that Kevin Budgeon made. So, it's while there's no possibility for anything like a top 10, you never know when you can make some little freebies up, and these all certainly count towards the ultimate standings. So any positions you gain and any points that you can gain, even if something happens, and an incident happens, etc., it's always beneficial, because you never know when they're going to come in handy towards the end of a championship.
Yeah, there's loads of points on the line, and every point is going to matter. I mean, the very best drivers will be gaining roughly 100 points per event here, so any little few that you can get here and there, and you'll be very grateful for it. So yeah, Budgeon, 14th position, is a decent recovery from where he was, especially at the end of the first free corners, which on the side of the road with no suspension left. So he's done a good job to recover from there. Top 6 though are all pro cars at this stage. You would expect that after all of this, and the field is kind of normalising itself out now. Although we do have a couple of leaders getting away, Amadeo and Miles getting away from these guys. I mean, even if they work together, the best that we've ever seen all season long, these guys, there's no way they're going to be able to get up to the leading duo. They're 8, nearly 9 seconds up the road. With this amount of time remaining, the best working together group in the world are not going to be able to close down those two. So it looks like this is the third, all they're going to get from this one. 4 pro cars fighting over the last spot on the podium, and it's going to be very entertaining. Of course, we've got to keep an eye on the battle for the race lead as well, which is not really going to kick off until the very last lap.
I'll tell you what, and we know how last laps can go here, as we found out about sort of half hour ago now. This is probably the other, this just whole battle, this whole train is probably going to be something that we are going to stick on with. We'll see from as many different camera angles as we can. I don't want to keep complete on this, because Christopher Miles is close as well, or fairly close to Ivan Fabro. So I don't want to completely count that out just yet. So do keep an eye out for that there, because that could very well turn into a battle in the final couple of laps, at which we are not too far away from getting near to. So Giuseppe Tellini's, admittedly, I think Giuseppe Tellini is in a bit of a stalemate at the moment, because he knows that if he tries to push, he's going to then cost himself time, and if he doesn't push, he potentially can get overtaken by Philip Hammer. So Tellini probably wouldn't want to be him at this point.
No, well, I wouldn't want to be anything, if I'm honest. I wouldn't want to be involved in this. That sounded quite bad actually out loud, didn't it? Sorry about that. But no, it's just this battle. It's very, very intense, and there's a lot at stake here. So yeah, it's a very stressful place to be. You'd much rather be obviously winning the race by seconds on your own, but obviously you can't have it all your own way on every single race, and these guys are going to have to fight for it on this occasion. I just wonder how hard Hammer is going to push in this battle now, really, because we obviously know what happened to him on the last lap of the last race? Will that be playing on his mind in terms of will he take a little bit more caution into the final lap on this occasion? Or will he be aiming to make up for lost points in the second race here and be even more aggressive in the second race and the closing moments?
Well, this is it, isn't it? You know, you've got two ways now that you look at this. Two ways you look at this potentially. It's going to kick off like fireworks, or it's really going to stay at a stalemate for the rest of the race. Again, it will go either way. There's one of two ways it's going to go. I feel fireworks are going to kick off. We saw anything between race 1. Nick Vaughn Roberts tries to go up the inside. No, but then we've got Tellini trying to go around the outside of turns 5. I don't think that's going to work. Tries to give it a go, though, and I tell you what, he's not all that far off, in all honesty. But Nick Vaughn obviously does actually back out of that, probably quite wise there. Fireworks are going to kick off, aren't they? We've seen that for the last few rounds of the season. We saw it last year as well. It always 9 times out of 10 it will kick off, which is great spectator. Spectating for people that are spectating, and for us as well. It's perfect, more to commentate on. But as long as it doesn't end like race 1 did, that keeps then everyone happy because everyone has a fair race. But it is at the moment that little bit of stalemate. People are trying to make overtakes and they're unable to do so. And I don't really think, in all honesty, how this is going to. What is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, I wonder?
Oh yeah, that is the thing here, really. We see this time and time again. Obviously, interesting battling, but not a lot of it really matters until the very final lap, and we're on the penultimate lap right now. We're just crossing onto it, so things are going to start to matter just that little bit more. It also kind of matters in which position are you going to be going on to the final lap. It's not quite as obvious around here because, as we've seen from Lucetta throughout this race, you can defend a group from the front and you can hold on for a position from the front of a group. That wouldn't be possible, for example, if you started the final lap at Road America in first position like we saw 2 weeks ago, or even Donington Park that we had as well. If you started those two circuits in the front of the group, it's almost guaranteed you're not going to win or finish first out of them. However, you can defend from the front here, although it is also possible to overtake, as we've just seen from Vaughn Roberts, who has now managed to get up into third place. So which position do you want to be in this group? First or second or even third? Do you want to be where Philip Hammer is and just have everything happen in front of you?
I'd almost want to be Philip Hammer at this point, in all honesty. I don't know. I'd rather, just considering what happened in the first race, yes, you could absolutely try and take another position. In all honesty, I would just bank the points. First race didn't go exactly to plan. There's probably a high chance that the second race isn't going to go to plan either. It just tends to be the nature of racing. If one race doesn't go particularly well, you've really got to try and pull it back, and through no fault of your own, of course. Sometimes it just happens to be that way, and luck just isn't on your side. No matter how fast you are, in some instances, luck you do need. There is a small element of luck in, especially if an incident happens or something like that, being in the right place at the right time. If you're one side of the circuit, you're golden. You go through. If you're the other side of the circuit and the other half of the circuit of the racetrack, you're done. You will get caught up in an instant. So luck is an element of it, albeit a very, very small portion. So I would just be sitting there going, nope, I'm going to bank the points because I don't want anything else to happen. Because you're in 6th place. Yes, okay, not particularly brilliant in terms of points, but points nevertheless.
Here is the battle for the points at the front of the field. Amadeo and Adam Miles side by side through turn 1. Miles off the road there at turn 1 to make that move. Will that's standard. How's Amadeo going to take that one around the outside? He sends that one in very late indeed. It's a very nice little run around the outside through turn 2. Gives it the inside for 3, but that's not too much compared to the inside line for 4, which Adam Miles is going to have. This battle, I have a feeling, is going to continue on almost the entire final lap.
You know what? I don't think you're far wrong, because Armada, you see the timer tower again going absolutely nutty. It doesn't know what to do. But at the moment, we can see what's happening here, and it literally is a neck-and-neck heat. Adam Miles is going to be ahead ever so slightly going into. He tries to squeeze a little bit. That was a very, very early on the brakes for Armadio there, but he tries to carry the speed through. They touch. Bit of contact between the two, and Miles now goes ahead. So after all that, Lawrence Armadio trying to make a move. Big moment there. Wow. How did he hit the curb, or did he get tapped by Lawrence Armadio there?
He got tapped. Amadeo tried to do the old, have a fast run through 8 and dive it at the inside of 9. It does sometimes work, but obviously not if you tap the car in front of you. So he's only got 1 or 2 opportunities remaining, really. Turn 12 is probably the best one remaining, and he's too far back here, surely.
Well, he's going to have to carry the momentum through. He uses all the track and a little bit more. Is going to be anything through 13. He just isn't close enough, is he? He's a couple of tenths back. It isn't going to be enough, although Adam Miles is a tiny bit wider, so it may even come down to that final stretch going to the start-finish line. But the start-finish line isn't too far away from the final corner. It's only about 100 yards up the road. In fact, there it is. So it's going to be Adam Miles taking the race to victory, with Loris Armadio coming so close in second place. What a good race from them. Nick Vaughan Roberts is going to take third. Lucetta 4. That's a very close battle, isn't it? So Vaughn Roberts, Lucetta, Tellini, Philip Hammer ends up holding his own in P6. We're going to get you the full standing results in a minute, and we're hopefully going to have a chat with a couple of drivers as well. But yeah, I mean, fair play to Adam Miles and Armadio. You know, both those drivers holding their own, but while they were racing firmly, they were racing fair as well. They did keep it clean. They did keep it fair, which is absolutely the main thing that we want. It's exactly the thing we want to do. The last thing we want is for anything to happen when it comes to some incidents such as race 1, race 2, much better.
Yeah, we said that was going to come down to the very final lap in terms of that battle for the race lead, and in the end it did. Adam Miles able to see off Amadeo in the end in that battle. I mean, it was very good and very clean. In the end as well. They battled so hard, by the way. They lost so much time towards the end. The gap actually back to Vaughn Robertson in his group was about 3 seconds less than it was about 2 laps earlier. They were really fighting very hard with those front two, and why wouldn't you, for that race victory. Philip Hammer there, by the way, did just edge off and tail off a little bit towards the end of that race. Finished his 6th, but made sure he backed off and got the fastest lap of the race on that last lap there, which gives him 1 solitary extra point to add to his smallish tally today. I'd imagine this will be the round, unless he has any more disasters in the remaining 3 rounds. This might well be the round that he ends up dropping from his overall score.
Yeah, as you say, you know, that we do have the option, and drivers do have the option to they do have drop rounds. They can take that into account. So, you know, again, while we do have an understanding of what's going on within the championship standings, come to the drop rounds that are removed, you know, it certainly can shake things up even more. We'll give it a couple of moments to see if we get a couple of drivers into the booth, and then we will be wrapping up. Yeah, in terms of, I mean, overtakes, there was certainly some big... I still can't get over Lucetta's. Lucetta's overtake going into turn 1. That double cutback, which took, 7 corners to actually maintain. I mean, fair play. You cannot argue with that in the slightest.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was probably the move of the race, I would say. There was so little room on the right-hand side for him to squeeze his car into, but he just about found the room and got through. In the end, wasn't able to hold on for that 3rd place. That went to Nick Vaughan Roberts. In that battle, but it was fantastic to watch between those two in that fight. And yeah, Lucetta picking up important points once again. Of course, those two, 2nd and 3rd in the championship respectively. So that was quite an important battle indeed as we look at the race results here.
Indeed, Adam Miles taking that taking the victory there. Provisional results, admittedly, though. I apologise, these are provisional. Loris Armadio in 2nd. We've then got Nick Vaughan Roberts in P3. Manuel Lucetta in 4th. Giuseppe Tellini takes P5 with Hammer in 6th. Christopher Miles in 7th. Ivan Fabro in 8th. Pizzati 9th. So that's your top 3 from the Pro-Am. Chaz Webber taking 10th. He 10th overall. He takes the Am victory. Anders Nielsen 11th. Nicholas Sarter in 12th. Thorsten Seifert 13th. And finishing then a couple of laps down, Kevin Budgeon, Filippo Bernardi, and then Joshua Dancy. So that is your full finishing results. And who we're going to have a chat to first, it is going to be Nick Vaughan Roberts. Nick, race 1 didn't end how you wanted it to, I can imagine. Race 2, though, that seemed to be a lot better.
Yep. Yeah, race 1. Oh, me and Adam were having a great battle. Side by side a lot. And then we just had a bit of contact. It was like a 50-50 thing, really. But then after that, there was a bit of carnage. It wasn't too bad for the championship, but not great position-wise. And same in the 2nd race. Yeah, I had a good battle, but again, going for looking at the championship, so it was best I could do really was 3rd. Yeah, so it's Yeah, it was both reasonably not too bad, not as bad as they could have been, basically. But yeah, I think a few people missed it because it was earlier start. So I think there's a few people missing from the actual race, which is a shame. But
Yeah,
yeah,
you know, in terms of in terms of grid size, not the biggest grid we've seen, but that certainly hasn't detracted away from the racing that we saw. You know, next round, different format again. You know, different format actually.
yeah.
Obviously, next race as well. I mean, do you have a preference on race formats?
Not really. I quite enjoy them all. The reverse grid, or oh, sorry, let me close that. The reverse grids are always tricky because you never really know where. Well, you know where you're going to start, but it's the people in front tend to be, you got to fight through, and also all incidents and crashes. I do like the endurance races, to be honest. I like a longer race. So.
Okay, well there we go. So
Yeah.
we will hope so. The longer races, then obviously next week being the endurance style, we'll hopefully see you fighting at the front once again. Nick, before we let you go, though, anyone you'd like to give a quick shout out to?
Yeah, obviously you guys for doing the stream and everything. That's great to watch back. And Benny for setting this up. And Adam gets involved. He does quite a bit for it as well, which is good. Yeah, thanks to those guys, definitely.
Stuff. Well, Nick, absolutely fantastic. Good to catch up again, and we will see you very, very soon.
Great. Cheers. Bye.
Nick Vaughn Roberts there, P3 for race number 2. Ewan, would you like to have a quick catch up with Adam Miles?
Yes, let's do that, shall we? Adam Miles joins. Oh dear me, there we go. Adam Miles joins us now from race victory, of course, in the second race, holding off Loris Amadeo. Adam, welcome to the commentary booth. How was that second race for you? Obviously, maybe a little bit better than the first one, especially at the end. But yeah, how was the fight with Amadeo?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really a fight until the last maybe 2 or 3 laps. I think the first 9 laps or so, we saw there was a gap. We had some pro-am drivers between ourselves and Philip and Nick, so it was just play it sensible for 9 or 10 laps. I think we built up an 8-second lead and then just went at it on the last couple of laps. I was happy to be second going on to the last lap to try and make that move down into turn 1 on the last lap. Loris defended the inside well. I think we went side by side maybe through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then of course we were side by side through that chicane. And Loris isn't happy, but I think I was far enough alongside to have some the right to some space on the left hand part of that chicane. So I feel good. I mean, that was a good race in the end. Just a shame that this reverse grid format means sometimes it's only a 2-car fight rather than a 5, 6, 7-car fight.
That is true. Obviously, we saw a 5, 6, 7-car fight in race 1. I don't want to dwell on it too much because it didn't end too well for you. What did you see though, from your particular perspective? What did it look like from where you were sat?
You mean the incident at the end?
Yeah, on the last lap. Yeah.
I think Philip came across from the left-hand side to the middle. I don't know if he was searching out Kevin's slipstream, but I was there. I think he quite clearly came away from the left-hand side. We made contact, and then Nick was blameless. I mean, my car pitched to the right, took him out, and then Christopher unfortunately got collected into Nick. So I think that's where it all started. It just not quite driving in a straight line on a bend.
It's a very big incident indeed, and one that will need to be looked over many times to decide quite what happened. But there we are. Looking ahead now, away from the Hungaroring, of course, we've got an endurance coming up, the longest race of this championship. It's 100 minutes in the fifth round. How are you looking forward to that? Will a longer style race suit you or not?
Yes, in theory it should, because I think I'd always back myself in clean air to do the laps to get to the checkered flag in the shortest possible time. But then I thought that at Charlotte as well, and I was net leading and then ended up speeding in the pit lane on my third stop. So I need to make sure that when there's 5 or 6 pit stops that they're all clean. I don't get any 40-second penalties, and if that's the case, then I think I stand a pretty good chance.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing you there. But for now, Adam, we'll let you go. Enjoy your race 2 victory here this afternoon. Great to watch you out there once again. Congratulations and thanks for coming to join us.
All right, thank you lot. Thank you both for the broadcast.
Thanks very much. There we go. I knew Adam Miles there from Race Victory and Race 2. There we are.
Indeed, as you say, there we are. So, no, absolutely fantastic. Really, really good racing here. We are going to have to wrap up. That is all we have time for. Thank you again to everyone that did come along and was watching along with the stream. Thank you again to Ewan for commentating alongside me on this fantastic series, and thank you to all the drivers as well for participating. We will be back for the endurance race in a couple, actually next week, in fact. Next Sunday, we will be back at our usual start time of 8:45. So do not go anywhere. Don't miss it. Do be there, because that's going to be a fantastic race, one not to miss. But until then, everyone, as always, take care, stay safe.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in endorsed series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.